day 21 of building and being and creating my best self, my best life. We made it to the 3-week mark, which is, that in and of itself is such a awesome and exciting thing for me. So I'm really proud of myself for that. Week 3 was an absolute doozy for me. It was a really hard week to begin with, and it was such a week of just seeing how easy it is to fall back into old mental habits and mental patterns. And I was struggling from like Monday until, I don't know, Wednesday morning, Wednesday night-ish, with just like, what is happening mentally? Like, why does this week feel so tough and sticky and hard? And I couldn't understand it. I was still working out, I was still getting up early, I was still like looking for those pockets of when could I go hike maybe. Like, I was still doing the actions, and I couldn't understand why I still felt like absolute crap still mentally. And by the time Wednesday rolled around, Wednesday night, maybe Thursday morning, I started realizing that the way that I've approached the week mentally is different than I have the previous 2 weeks. And I started realizing, like, oh, I am not actually being as intentional with the things that I let myself think and how I approach the feelings that I'm feeling. I started to kind of just let myself fall to the feelings that were going on, instead of actually observing the feelings and saying, is this actually true? And it was a week of letting my feelings be facts. Those first 3 days of the week were the hardest because I wasn't feeling great mentally, and I let that just stay and be the case. And after talking with my husband a little bit, he said something, I don't remember what he said, but he said something, and I was thinking about it, I was like, oh crap, yeah, I have not been looking at this week through the lens of best self Jenny. I have fallen back to old Jenny ways, and that was such a disappointment. And look, that is how life is. That is how it goes when we want to create change. It is not linear. It's going to be up and down. So, one, I'm very grateful for the fact that I was able to finally understand what was going on, because I was starting to feel so, honestly, heartbroken that, like, mentally I just felt like I was in this back where I used to be, but yet I was still exercising, doing the same things that I had done, like routine wise, the previous 2 weeks. And so being able to come to that realization and knowing of, oh, this is what's happening, was really helpful and very eye-opening. And I think it makes it easier to move forward into week 4, knowing, okay, I really need to focus on the mindset thing. I think I've gotten to a place now, again, I feel very fortunate. I really love physical activity, and so that has been really easy to reincorporate back into my life. The mentality piece, though, is going to be the most challenging part of waking up every day and asking myself, what would best self Jenny do? What would she choose today? How would she respond? How would she act? How would she carry herself? And leaning into that life and turning that into my new reality. I think that is the thing that I really need to focus on and want to focus on in week 4. So that's going to be my big focus. The other thing that I think is important to recognize is that our brain is going to default to the familiar. And I know I talked about this in a very short check-in video, but I think that this idea plays into my week 3 recap, because my brain was starting to default back to the familiar, even though the familiar does not serve me anymore and the person that I want to be. And so, more than anything, remembering and reminding myself that it is natural and easy for my brain to want to choose the other thing. This is going to be a very challenging and hard journey, and that is okay. Just because I maybe feel uncomfortable in this new identity doesn't mean that it is the wrong choice. Uncomfortable just means that something isn't familiar to us. When things become familiar to us, that's when we get comfortable. But just because they are comfortable, just because they are familiar, does not mean that it's actually healthy, that it's actually safe. Our brain just interprets comfort and familiarity with safety, even if it's actually not. And I think just remembering that, again, also as I'm practicing the self-compassion piece of, if I'm finding myself getting frustrated with the fact that I'm just not in the best self-Jenny mindset 24/7 now, I think just remembering and showing myself that self-compassion of, hey, that's okay. That is what it is going to be doing for the next little bit, and all I can do is just keep doing the best I can with what I have available to me. And I think part of that for me is, one, taking just 2 minutes in the morning to really just stop and ask myself, like, how does my best self want to show up today? And I think that helps set the tone for the rest of my day. Maybe not perfectly, but I think it really starts the day in the right trajectory for myself. And so I think starting my day with that question and that just a quick check-in with myself really will make a difference. I'm going to experiment with that this week and see how that helps. I've started doing that more on the back end of week 3, so like Thursday through Sunday. I started checking in a little bit more with asking, how would best self Jenny feel? How would she respond? Those kinds of questions. And I think incorporating that really did turn my week around, on top of just the acknowledgement of, oh, this is what's going on. So overall, week 3 was really challenging, but I learned a lot from it, which is great. I still had some things that I'm really proud of. I mean, even though I was having a really mentally challenging week, I still was doing my routine. I still was exercising. I still was eating well. Like, I was doing all these things still. So I think that is also something, like, I am so proud of myself for, because I think it's so easy when we are having a mentally challenging week to not do those things. So very grateful for that. And then week 4, really prioritizing that morning 2-minute check-in of what is best self Jenny, how would she approach this day, or something like that. But yeah, that is week 3 in a nutshell, and going into week 4 with a little bit more intention around mindset and mentality.